Most real estate investors believe that their biggest challenge is finding funding for a real estate project. And, it's funny. I was thinking about it early on, and early on in your career, it is a little bit challenging to get funding, financing, capital to fund your real estate projects. But I think as time goes by, you realize that it's a very limited belief, and it's a lot easier to get capital than one might think. And Ian and I are going to go through multiple ways for you to find capital for your next real estate project, so you have no excuse.
Yeah. And, thinking about it, it's like, if we were real YouTubers, you would see ding, 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 all these different funding sources that come to mind. And when you first get started, it's so overwhelming. And all you know how to do is one thing, because either A, you've bought a house, or B, you've read a book on how hard money works. And when I first got started in real estate, all I knew is, hey, man, you go to a hard money lender. I had messed up credit and I could get money to go do a project. At least that's what I thought. And as we have evolved over the past 10 years, we have found multiple ways to buy real estate, not only with cash from our pocket, but cash not out of our pocket, buying millions and millions and millions of dollars of real estate without having to pull a single penny from our pocket. And this isn't one of those scammy videos or clickbait videos where we're going to tell you, hey, you can do real estate with no money out of pocket. But if you are crafty enough and can learn all the tools in the toolbox, then you'll be able to apply these tools to go and do that exact thing if that's what you so choose to do.
And keep in mind, the best real estate investors out there are using multiple different types of funding sources combined, right? They're using multiple different ones, and we're going to go through them. And I'm saying that now, so as we go through these funding sources, you can be like, oh yeah, that's a little bit more manageable, or I can do it this way, or I can do it that way. And then we're going to end with that as well. So you can be creative to figure out what works best for you. So let's just dive in and let's go through the first one. So very obvious, but banks, right? Banks, and I get it. Not everybody's bankable in general. There's pros and cons of dealing with a bank. Obviously, a bank is going to require you to, have good credit, to put down a down payment, personally guarantee the loan. They're going to look at your financials, potentially even make your spouse sign. The benefits of a bank is they have the cheapest capital, right? So you're going to get cheap capital. You're going to get good terms if you are bankable. The other downfall of a bank is, if you're out there on the prowl and you have a really good deal and it needs to close in 3 days, you're not going to be able to use a bank for that particular project. But if you do have time and you are bankable and have good credit and can show your assets and your income, a bank is a great option. Now, remember, as we talk through and go through all of these different funding sources, think outside the box and be creative on how some of these funding sources can work for you. If you don't have good credit, great. Maybe a bank doesn't work for you in this particular case.
Yeah, I'm not sure that maybe this is the most obvious, but it could be the most obvious because that's how most people traditionally go out and buy real estate. They buy real estate, usually it's their primary residence, and they buy it through a bank because most people aren't independently wealthy enough to do it. We've utilized banks. Banks became our best friends after we used a few other things that we're going to go over here in a minute. But banks have multiple ways to get deals done. Now, Jason talked about all the positive things that come with banks. I'll quickly tell you some things that you might want to watch out for, especially in 2023, as we're going into 2024, what you might want to watch out for with banks. Banks do get certain buckets that they're allowed to fill or not fill, and they do have certain cash constraints that they need to have on hand. So one of the best ways to do business with banks is figuring out what bucket they need to fill. Hopefully it's an asset class that you can fill. And number two, giving them the banking relationship, i.e. doing all your deposits there. And that usually goes a really long way with small community banks. So that's something that you want to think about when you're going to talk to a bank. What can you offer them that will make you a better borrower? Also, you want to have your story in place. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you going to be successful at real estate? They want to know how this deal is going to be successful going forward. And generally speaking, the loan officer has to go before their lending committee and present that to them, which then allows you to get the loan. So, banks are a great way to get started. They might not always be the easiest to deal with up front, but it is a great way to get started in real estate utilizing banks, and it is something that you will use all the way throughout your real estate careers.
Let's talk about hard money lenders. I brought up if hard money bankers because, hey, it's a shameless plug. I'm doing this video. I can plug what I want. But hard money lender, I feel like I'm an expert to talk on this topic because I've been lending out for the last 16 years. And, there's pros and cons of a hard money lender. The pros are, typically any credit score works, right? Most lenders are not looking at, multiple bank statements and tax returns and income documents and things like that. The most important part of the process for a hard money lender is the collateral, is the deal, the project you're buying, the investment residential property, the commercial building that you're buying, or you want a loan on. Is it a good asset? Is it good collateral? Yes, the terms might differ based on your ability to execute, but if the underlying asset is good, typically a hard money lender, in essence, will be able to help you. The downfall is the terms are higher. And in today's market, at the end of 2023, the terms aren't all that much higher than they were, right? They were significant. There was a big difference, maybe 500 basis points, 600 basis points for a while. Now it might be 100 or 200 or 300 basis points between some sort of institution and a hard money lender. What I mean by that is if a hard money lender is, a 12, 13, 14% rate, you could get capital in the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8% rate. Now it's more 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's not a huge difference in today's environment, but the rate and the points are going to be higher. And it's something to think about. Just make sure it works for your particular deal.
Yeah, this is what I utilized up front because I didn't have the wherewithal to be bankable. I utilized hard money up front, not only from hard money bankers, but from several other private lenders out there who are hard money lenders. And what we figured out was how to maximize the amount of money we could borrow from a hard money lender, what the project needed to be all in at, and then be able to refinance with the bank on the back end and or sell that property off to make a profit. One thing I learned early on dealing with hard money lenders and banks early on was they got a pretty good gauge of what they're willing to lend you. That kind of gives you a basis or another viewpoint on the deal. Well, I didn't recognize that in real time. What happened was I figured out that hard money lenders and banks are like, hey, I'm only willing to lend X because I think the value is Y. Meanwhile, I'm thinking the value is 10%, 20% higher. Well, guess what? I pulled back my underwriting. I utilized their values and decided, hey, if I can make it work in their values, if my 10 to 15% is right because I'm in tune with the market, that's added bonus for us and our investors. So just that's a good point. They're out there. Google search hard money lenders. If you're in Jason's local lending area, I'll give them a shameless plug. They're easy to work with. Utilize them in the several states that they lend in. But that's not what we're not here for. We're not here to give shameless plugs. We're here to give you the facts on how to get real estate deals done. So what do we got next for the next funding source?
Private lender. Private lender is a great way to fund your first deal, your next deal, your 1,000th deal. But again, private lenders, the interesting part about a private lender is everyone thinks like, oh, I'm just going to use Jason's private lenders or I'm just going to go use Ian's private lenders. Not that a private lender belongs to somebody, but that being said, it's relationship based. It takes time to create a relationship with a private lender. There's pros and cons. The pro of dealing with a private lender is, in essence, you can somewhat dictate the terms and the setup with them. Typically, the terms are a little bit less than a hard money lender. And you can, in essence, creatively dictate the terms of what works best. The downfall is you have to go find private lenders. Private lenders aren't just typically raising their hand in the corner stating, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm here. I'm a private lender. I'm ready to go. It usually doesn't work like that, usually you need to go and create a relationship with somebody.
Yeah, for us private lenders, what we found out was it was like, oh, I'm going to go shave a few points off what I pay these hard money lenders, right? But what I found out was Jason is right. They are hard to find. You need to build a relationship. So what we did was we built a relationship and a track record with hard money lenders and banks, then went to our friends and family and said, hey, we're already doing this with Jason and Chris. We're doing this with such and such bank. We're already doing this. What I'm willing to do is not pay what I'm paying those guys, but I'm also willing to pay you a little more than what the bank's willing to do and still give them a good rate of return, right? They're still taking risk on you. And the other thing was, here's Jason and Chris's blueprint. Guys, you do a few real estate deals, you figure it out. You want to be secured in first position, you want some sort of security instrument, and you want to have some sort of protected lending value. And if you're willing to be diligent enough, you can get your lenders to do that, and then you can dictate the terms. We always have chosen to follow the same thing that we would do with Jason and Chris. The only thing that we did was instead of paying them on a monthly basis, for us, it's easier to pay on a quarterly basis to get the money out just because we have a lot of stuff going on. But more or less, we followed the same exact formula that the banks and the hard money lenders utilize. Utilize their blueprint, just hack it, do exactly what they would do, and then say, here's a proven process and track record that works. I've done it with them. Why wouldn't it work with you? And you're able to go ahead and move that needle along. So
if you like this style of content, do us a favor and smash that like button. Even better, subscribe to the channel and we'll keep this content coming.
What we got next for the next funding source?
Yeah, so next funding source. Let's go with seller financing. So I think seller financing is another limited belief that a lot of real estate investors that don't have a lot of experience think that doesn't exist. Well, seller financing is extremely popular, especially in the markets that we're going in now, and especially in commercial assets. We see a lot of it, and it's in commercial assets. It's like, hey, it's common. It's part of it, right? Most commercial deals have some sort of built-in financing, but on the residential side, certainly is as well, especially not just because the market's changed, but because the markets have appreciated so much. So like a lot of sellers, they have built-in equity on some of these things. So they're able to do so.
Yeah, I would say with seller financing in the residential space, it's a little harder, right? You're dealing with someone's prized asset and there's a bigger hurdle to climb. Some of your more sophisticated real estate investors that are parceling off parts of their portfolio, sure, you could probably get some sort of seller financing terms. You'll see a lot more loan assumptions in the residential space, I think is a good way to look at it. Subject to, we all know Pace Morby. A few other guys are out there talking about subject to, right? That's a really popular, hot subject right now. Seller financing in the commercial space, a little more prevalent. We're talking B2B, right? We're talking with people that have business acumen, that understand the power of seller financing and being the bank in certain situations and how they're protected. And they're a little more savvy in real estate. So again, apply seller financing where you see fit. We have a few of our friends, John Farling, he gets a lot of deals done with seller financing. He comes out of the gate talking about it. What's the benefits of it? Again, if you've never done a real estate transaction, it's really hard to tell someone why you're going to succeed at this versus getting a couple transactions done under the traditional route. I'm not saying you have to go that way, but if you do, it's a proven track record to tell somebody else. We had a proven track record of over 100 homes that we were owning and operating, and it led us to a $5 million multifamily asset that the owner financed 90% of that. $4.5 million she owner financed to us. And guess what? Now we've been able to leapfrog that into other sellers that we're talking to. Hey, we've owner financed a $4.5 million building. Again, building your track record and proving to people why you're able to get the deals done.
Yeah, very, very good point. And if you guys aren't getting this yet, think about it. We've talked about 4 or 5 funding sources at this point. And that doesn't mean that they need to work exclusively by themselves. They can work together. And that's where the power goes in. Let's talk about that for a little bit. So let's say you go and you get a hard money lender, and the hard money lender tells you that you need a down payment. That's reasonable, or a bank. And they tell you that you need some sort of down payment. Okay, Well, maybe you can get a private lender to help bridge that gap and put together some of the down payment, or maybe you can get the seller to finance part of the property and bridge the down payment, right? So now all of a sudden, or maybe you do all three. You do a hard money lender, a private lender, and seller financing, right? The hard money lender puts up whatever, 70%, a private lender puts up 20%, and the seller financing puts up 10%, whatever, or any variation. That's where your heads need to be thinking, and that's where you need to get creative to make these deals work, right? They're not gonna just sit there and slap you in the face, dummy, of this is how hey, this is how we're gonna structure it. You need to engineer these transactions. You need to structure them to the ways to see fit. So a HELOC is also a very common way to get funding on these deals. And I know in general, most haters, their rebut is like, well, I don't have $200,000 in my HELOC. I'm not able to utilize my HELOC to do a deal, and that's how much I'm going to need to do it. It's like, okay, well, how much do you have in your HELOC? You have 20 grand? Do you have 30 grand? Great. Utilize that with a bank. Utilize that with a hard money lender. Utilize that with a private lender. Figure out a way to make it work with what you have. I challenge you to get a piece of paper out and write down everything that you have. Figure out all the funding options, figure out everything that you have, and start there. But a HELOC will give you the ability to leverage that up in order to potentially buy a bigger deal.
Yeah. And I think HELOC, another way to look at this is you have HELOC to get cash to go do deals, right? But the other way you can look at this HELOC is cross collateralization. Let's say you own some real estate free and clear. Can you go to a hard money lender, or you have super low leverage, and can you go to a bank and say, hey, I owe 25 grand on a $100,000 asset. Would you cross collateralize my equity to allow me to go do this deal, right? Because HELOCs aren't as popular in the commercial game as they are in the single, your personal name. But in the same sense, there's a great way to utilize this similar concept of utilizing the equity you have in your properties. Utilizing the equity that you have in your properties, HELOC's still hanging up. Utilizing that equity you have in your properties to go and buy another deal. Those are just things to think about when you're trying to go out and purchase a property. How can you utilize what you already have in your books to advance your portfolio further down the road? And as you continue to go down further down the road, at a certain point, then you're going to start to look at asset protection, paying off properties. How can you utilize HELOCs and all these other different things to continue to grow? But when you first get started, write down all the assets that you have and figure out how you can make them liquid to get involved in real estate.
The next funding source is cash. And I know all the haters out there are going to say cash isn't a funding source. That's not, no duh. I'll just buy it and I don't need funding or financing. Well, guess what? There's real value to your own cash. There's real value, and nobody respects their cash, and nobody takes value to it. Let me give you an example. So let's say you buy a property with all cash for $100,000, right? And then it takes you a year, you flip it, and you make $10,000, right? And you make $110,000 back, you net $10,000. It's like, great, I made a 10% return on my cash. Okay, that's not awful return. You made 10% return on your cash. But like, if you made 10% return on your cash, what'd you make on your time in a year? 0, right? So like, you're not respecting your money. You got to look at your time and the investment, and then you have to look at your own capital itself. Now, for instance, let's say somebody else put up all that cash, right? Then you say, okay, I made a 10% return based on my time on this deal, and I didn't take on any risk. And, I did it that way. But like, your cash has to earn, right? Because what happens if your cash is sitting in your bank account, right? It's not earning, sitting in just sitting there. It's not earning anything. Like, you need to respect cash, and nothing makes money better than money, right? Like, that's what it is. You need that, and you need to respect it. So like, in essence, your cash should be making you a 10% return to begin with, something like that, give or take. You could do something a little bit more conservative, like a savings account or a CD, or money market. You could do something more aggressive, like an active investment. But in essence, like, a 10% return passively should be, reasonable for cash in general. So you can't just state that, oh, I'm going to use my own cash and then not respect the amount of money or lack of money that it's making, right? There's your time, there's your energy, and then there's money. In essence, if you spend a whole year doing a property and you use your own cash and you make 10 grand, that is a waste of time and a waste of your cash.
Yep. And here's another good point. I love people that say this. I'm not putting my money in that deal. It's too risky. But then they want to go and sponsor the deal and borrow the money from their friends and family. And it's like, well, wait a second. If you're not putting your money into your own deals and you don't believe in yourself that much, how are you going to get the deal done anyway? That's what we used to do when we went to go and talk banks. You know, we were willing to sign personal guarantees. We were willing to do what we needed to do to get the deal done because we believed in what we were doing so much. It allowed us to get to that next level. So if you have cash on hand and you're more worried about raising money from other people, this is a great time to utilize your own cash and treat it like investors' capital. So you can go and show your investor friends, hey, I have company and company borrowed money from me and me earned 10%. Okay. And now it's like, holy crap. Like instead of that being me, it could be me plus my friends or then my friends' friends. And that all grows. And now you got a true case study to show people. So you need to go out there, be willing to what you need to work through, and keep it moving forward and, you know, utilize that cash. If you have it in the sidelines, you should be more than happy to put it in your own deals. If you're not, you shouldn't be doing that deal anyway.
No doubt. All right. So although there's lots of different funding sources and we've gone through a few, let's just end with co-investing. And again, some of the haters are going to be like, co-investing isn't a funding source. Just like cash and HELOC, that's my own money. That's not a funding source. Well, yes, it is, right? Because it's a funding source is a way for you to leverage yourself into this opportunity, into this deal to make more money. So you can co-invest, or someone can co-invest with you via debt, via equity, however you want to set it up to do so. I think a common one in real estate is, hey, you put up all the money, I'll do all the work, we'll split everything 50-50. That's typically for a short-term fix and flip setup, right? You do all the work, I'll put up all the money, and then we're going to split the profits. And that's fine if you want to do it that way. It doesn't have to be that way, but like that's the way you do it. Other way you do it is, hey, I'll put up 50% of the money, you put up 50% of the money. My money might come from a hard money lender or a bank. Your money might come from cash or a HELOC or another private person, and then we'll do some sort of equity participation as the property performs. The purpose is get creative. And I think, even though we didn't really mean to do this at the beginning, I think all of these things have got more creative over time. All of these strategies.
Yeah. And I would say co-investing is the one that took us the longest to offer. We were super successful. You know, it was like, man, we want to bring our friends in, but we don't know what deals to do it. How's it going to work? What's it going to look like? Right. Co-investing was the absolute last thing that we did because we had proven track record. We had proven concept. We knew what worked over a period of time. But hey, if you're getting started, there's a million ways to co-invest. You know, maybe you have a deal and it's a fix and flip, like Jason said, or maybe it's a big commercial asset you need to get your friends and family involved in. But more importantly, let's say you have a great W-2 job and you don't want to quit your W-2 job and you just want to find another place to deploy capital. Co-investing might be a great way to find great sponsors like these guys. There's my shameless plug at Equity Warehouse, where we co-invest with our friends and family, right? That's what we do. We bring them in and show them how great real estate is. We put our own money in and people put it in together. And we have a lot of friends of ours that love their jobs. They're still firemen, they're cops, they're nurses. They have great paying corporate W-2 jobs. They're our tax accountants and our insurance agents. And they love what they do, but they just want a place to deploy capital. So co-investing or investing in syndications is a great thing that you can work through and look at if you don't have the time dedication or you don't want to take on the headache. Maybe you take a DISC personality test and find out you don't have the mental capacity to handle dealing with problem tenants. One of our I'll bring this all together. One of our investors today wanted to get involved in real estate, saw what Dan and I were doing, went out, bought a rental house, had an atrocious time. He said to Dan and I cannot do this. I cannot tolerate the evictions. I can't tolerate the bullshit. I don't want anything to do with it. What I will do for you is I'll let you take over my payments. I'll owner finance you the difference of what I want. And then every dollar that I get, I want to invest with you guys because I don't want to own real estate. And he's got quite a bit of money with us now, and he still invests with us today. He was one of our first investors, but there it is. That's the whole thing rolled up into one, utilizing all these different types of ways to get deals done and apply them to your business. So if you don't think you have money or you don't have the wherewithal to get the money to do a real estate deal, that's a limiting belief. You need to keep going through YouTube, not only just our page, anywhere you can find it. There's plenty of ways to fund deals.
Get creative, no excuse, bad credit, no credit, low cash, no cash, don't know the area, whatever it is, figure it out. You'll make it work. We just gave you 8 examples. They all can be interchanged into different things. Hard money lender with a private lender, with seller financing, with some of my money from my HELOC or my cash. Figure it out, right? Put the puzzle together. Figure out how you're going to fund your next deal, because there's no excuse. And guess what? There's a lot of good opportunities coming up right now. So these are ways that you can easily fund your next real estate project. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video or any other video that we've done, do us a huge favor. We'd really appreciate it. Smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. It goes a long way for us and our viewerships and YouTube. We're trying to grow our YouTube channel to try to provide really, really, really good quality content from the front lines, from Ian and myself. These are things that we are actively involved in and do every day. Ian and I chat about these things every single day, and we want to make sure we can continue to bring the highest level quality video and content to you. So we certainly appreciate that. Thanks, guys, and check out our next video.